Webcasting, shadow weaving, line settings, high signature patterns, resetting and line and rotations, locations, zero line one line setting, high interference, formation locations of all systems, intelligence and position of bandwidth of high setting line and rotations. One equals lines of one position location of one line setting of nine. Nine position location of track interference is the center operation streamlines and correlation system is dimensional line setting, ground levels and operation circles and high setting position. 3 over line setting is 5 over pi. The center line communication is 6. 6 line position location is 7. 7 line position is 8. 8 in the infinity line rotations and 9 circular rotation settings. Setting position location all levels. Scaling graphs of communications all levels of high setting is really understand how to get into the energy wash. Solar generation streamlines in solar star. The chakra set location and position location measures its correlation system. Electrical lights, electrical panels, electrical interference of pi is set location in high level setting. Get energy wash line setting, retracts high interference and position locations, push it back in balance. Balancing the communication line settings to understand the star systems of records and line conditions. A star line communication is its reference. Okay, there's no stars line setting is space anomaly, but the position of the star records and line communication system, you are the star line settings of GOD. That's the correlation system that we have to recognize. It correlates its position locations into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 sets of line settings a point system. That point system changes the rotation spin cycle set lines of communication. The rotators and the routers and the set lines electrical line graph set locations is a higher measure correlation system. This scales its line setting to all positions to one graph line setting into 1 trillion in 1 killion setting in 1 second per mile per channel per operand per square per calculus through pi. The position of your location is all about channeling at high levels of channel rotations. The rotation spin cycle is high setting is high calculation streamlines. Setting correlation high interference. So really understand the energy wash. We talked about that before, but when you go into higher levels of channel offset streamlines, you have to really recognize the graph line settings. So it's kind of like releasing filters that are not supposed to be there. Recoursing channels, activation streamlines, recognition line communications to satellite positions of channel offset stream locations. Put you guys in higher channels of operation. Setting position location of direct line settings. So you got a zero line rotations into 1. 1 equals locations into 1. And set locations to 119 sets in communication, right? Now the line center sets line position locations into 10. The 10 line center into all positions of its ether rotation. Setting correlations into 3 triangles and set lines, okay? 9 sets line position, 9 sets in position location east. And set lines in 9 line conditions of west and set locations. Now the generation line center sets 9 position to its flux capacitor. Channel line streamline position location is position of 6, line position of 7, position of 8. 8 line centers, 8 comes into the center line rotation, 8 position located here and set locations high setting into box 4 set high line rotations, negative over pi, pi over negative, negative over line setting. Setting communication system in 1 track setting. Rotation spin cycles into 2 box locations, 8 line settings, 8 rotations, 8 circles. Setting line position location 8, 8 in position line setting in trifactor and set location to its high setting. Done by equation. Now the rotation send lines and communication system sets line communications. Now you got 16 line communications. That's 1 line channel and 6 rotation, right? That's 6 line center through a throttle communication line setting. That rotates its spin cycle and Fibonacci's in 3 line positions into line position of 6 and position locations into 7, 7 and position of 8, 8 position location of 9, and line position location at 10, 10 position locations into 11, and rotation spin cycle into 12 line setting rotation interference. Done by equation. Setting communication system is 0 gravity line rotation interference. Setting position locations all levels. 0 line position locations here, here, and here. Bracket location settings, high position locations. Travels position, signal line positions. Open graph line centers. We got line position locations and 2 panels of 2 UFO line rotations and an X line setting, an X line center rotation interference, in position location and directions, in position of scan line settings. Done by equation. Rotation spin cycles and high generation lights at crop circle location settings. Open all line center rotation interference. Setting correlation systems into 1 into 9 line setting, equal line conditions into set locations into scan lines of a new ground setting and rotation spin cycles in set location of 9 in position of 1 set location. Now the 1 line center sets line position location as 0, set location equal line conditions into 0, 0, 0, 1 line setting, 1 in position locations You take the one line setting in position location of the directions, becomes 11. 11 channels into 2 port line rotations into 5 line settings. Bracket that locations. Center line position equals 5 in set locations. Down by equation. Now, getting in communication is truly extend the recognizing line settings. The recognition and time sequence of times of pi is the recognition location when it comes into space anomaly. Remember I told you what anomaly is? So let's say you have a 7, 6, and you have a 5-line rotation in position, right? The 5 rotation has its set locations, right? But 6 is not supposed to be there because it's in a low gravity location setting, all right? So in set location, 6 has to be in a certain line of communication. That's a half pipe, a high line interference of 6 positions over pi in set locations. That merges the moon set in high interference of a virus communication in set location, right? So recognizing line communication set locations into odd and even, positive and negative, light and dark, setting line communication, masculinity and femininity into the definitive position locations and circle line rotations. Your job is the recognition of line connections. So you got 19 set lines in communication, a one line graph into 9 rotations into a dome, setting correlation system to 2 tube set line in rotations. Open all line center to a rotation spin cycle to your position locations into your immune setting. In graph line rotations into 4 line positions of high setting, cross, high center line position. Graph and streamline center to a tube line in rotation into center operation of 3 wires. Line positions of 1, line position of 9, 19 line position locations, equal line conditions of 1. 1 crosses over and 1 line centering, 1 equals negative over positive position location of track setting, equal line conditions to its 19. You box the 19 into trifactor line positions in set locations of pi in its resonant set line system, done by equation. Now, when you get in position line direct locations, you have to truly understand how to use an X channel setting. An X channel line setting to set locations is set location cell levels, correlation to its communication to its commanding setting rotation. The rotation line setting sets all line position locations cell levels of scan lines of scales and set lines of graph lines of 2 rotation settings. Rotation spin cycle sets line communication to higher levels of channel rotation. Setting line communication sets line graph line position locations into higher levels of different direct location settings. High position locations comes into another ground setting rotations into back surface, into rotation setting rotation interference in set locations. Down by equation. Now, once you get into the X-line setting, the X-line setting comes into line equals locations of Y, sets up a new flux of past position locations, high setting rotation, right? Now, once it gets in that line interference, the allocate line center comes into 9 rotations, equal line conditions to its energy, to line communication of its wash, in set locations to its velocity, in set locations to its antenna, to set locations to its alpha, equal line conditions of a delta, inline communication to its omega set locations in set location setting. Done by equation. Now, the reason why I'm doing these things is really recognizing the formulas of equation locations. Let's look at a box line center rotation channels. Now you got line position of 6 and 5 line setting, 6 and 5 top lines, and 3 line position of center. Now you got position of 4 in set locations into south wind sectors and set locations into east into the west line communication. Now, line communication of 6 is line position of 16 over line position of pi. 5 is timeline sequence over line condition heart reactor. East wind in 3 line center in sector location position in its division locations of travel in 12 DNA line setting. Done by equation. The receptacle communication system is the torical set lines. This is the nordic line of rotation interference that sets position location near GOD. The GOD sets line communication system when it comes into its rainbow wash. Now, understanding the connections to the star system locations, rotation spin cycles, high center generous light settings, so levels of neutralization, high center interference, setting position location track locations. Now, once you get in that line interference, you got 119 setting locations, comes into energetic graph strings, rotation spin cycles, and graph locations. All right? So, coming into 0 line rotations, into 0 line, bracket locations into 0, 0, bracket locations, equal line conditions equals 1 setting. Now that 1 setting rotates its position locations into 1 line setting of 9, 1 position 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 of 9. All set locations done by equation. All right. So You really have to understand the energetic graph lines because it's all position, location, and direct settings. Right, so we got 10 line settings and high line interference line locations in 60 seconds per minute per channel per operation line settings. We have 32 line positions of all levels of viewer, watching communication of 7 thumbs up and set location to its division, location of space and time through its energy wash, line communication line setting. In rotations, you have 60 seconds and set locations. Equal line conditions of 1, equal line conditions of 9, set lines and 9 communication to energy graph line rotations into all position locations into its valve of correlation done by equation. All right, so as I'm setting these things up in high center interference, the zero line rotation is set locations. All right, you got the center line position locations and the higher level calculations. You got your DNA track line position locations, all of the system location positions, and you got your rotors and communications to your tracker settings. Okay, so the spin cycle comes into an immune setting rotation that comes into a inner line conditions to its direction. Now, the direct line center separates its line communications into higher levels of solar generation streams, sending line position locations into all levels to a tin can set line. Now, the tin can set line sets line position rotation spin cycles and set lines in high center interference. This centers its center line rotation interference in position location to its dimensional run setting. The rotation set lines and communication system opens all track line connections into one 9-line setting equal to box a square location done by equation. All right, setting communication settings and rotation setting interference. 6 over line position of 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Line position location of conscious line setting. Setting position location of track interference. Perceptions over pi, levels of correlation system, intelligent line positions, and 1, 2 line setting. 7, 8 line 7, 8 line position locations, 6,000 position location track lines, formation locations, caps, locks, control, shift, line position location, space bar. Escape line, communication setting, rotation spin cycles, and high center interference. Energy watch and line position locations, and 19 over position over channel. Activate streamline centers to the team line setting rotation. All right. So it's opening up channels of correlation setting up energy wash streamlines in certain locations. So you got a box channel line center rotations. You got non-line interference of an energy wash rotation setting line connection system. You got your DNA track line position locations and S channel position line directions. You got waving cycles and set lines and 3-line communications and line center rotations and position locations into sun line communication into the moon rotation. So the sun comes into set line interference, sets up light codes to the moon. Moon rotates its cycle, sets line position over here, sets line position over here, sets line position over here, 3 track locations. In set lines, the moon comes in position to the sun line in center locations. Sun sets up line codes of alpha line position locations of wave central line communication of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 divisional line settings and high center line rotation and interference location of DNA track line position locations into 0 of 19 set lines of communications. Energize and line center locations and interference line position location directions. Pi over triangulation high center interference of interfacing location settings, putting you in position locations to higher communication system into a uniform line center of essential location after travels, after connection, after projection locations of position locations of pi, done by the equation. All right. So really understand what's going on now is the tracker line setting is opening up more line communication system to get you guys ready into your avatar sequence. Okay, allocate position on timelines, Madeline, align position location of Cami, align center locations into all position locations. Into set lines of communications into Yolanda into Gypsy into Sam in position locations, all to Commander into Val into Tara position locations into high setting location, Geneva, Guardian, Johnny calculation systems, all levels of Leah, Airbender calculations, sound lines, high interference, directional specs lines, communication, and Metron line settings of Heather, correlation system of Tina line center, and a high interference location, Nikki line position locations, high center interference, high direct location of Joanne line center interference, line direct location, position location of Val, center location of Chris, sending the high interference, line position location of all of Susan line interference, high direct locations to high communication systems of Tara line position location of Rainer line rotation and position locations, high setting, into Trinity position line direct locations and position line setting, and high interference location and position, all levels of correlation settings. All right. So knowing exactly what's happening with you is your top rotation streamlines and high line position location direct line setting is opening up energy wash locations, rainbow division locations, position location, the graph line settings. Put you guys in algorithm locations. And an algorithm is line center rotations to a position line connection to a colossal. A colossal line connection is a cluster line communication line system. Deleting all program set lines and high line position location, electrical line communication system. Now, there's a trained cell line settings and set lines and one graph line Cisner, high position location calculated streamlines. So you got a one line position of box into so many set lines of all communication of cell lines into one bracket and one center line positions to one hanger and line rotation interference and direct location to its position locations of a high setting. Okay? Now, understanding the one line setting of 9-line rotation is energized the set lines of communication, how it rotates its spin cycles, right? It sets location of energy wash. That's why you have to understand why you have a solar star chakra set location to its position location of directions, right? It opens up all sealments and set lines of communications at 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 set location settings done by equation. Now, the graph line center line and rotation interference sets position locations. It laces its line communications, ocular line interference of tentacle set lines and high interference and position locations into 24 line signatures and pattern communications and rotations of an energy graph or rotation spin cycle and high center line rotation and position location attracts locations. There you go. So know exactly what's going on with you again and again and again is recognize the communication of top rotation line centers of triangle location settings into 3-line center location, 6-line position location, 9-line position location line conditions, 1 the box line setting, 3 position location of 6-line position location of box line center of square root position line setting and position location the levels of satellite connections into its box location, center line communication and UFO line setting, and rotation ground line center, new crop circle location, position and direction. Down by equation. All right. Centering communication is truly understand how to recognize these things. They're all communication line centers of pi, guys. The recognition timelines and high interference line position location is all connected to your throw pattern. Everything in alignment sets lines its communication to its box surface, box positions of triangulations of its surface line setting into intercept location of interfacing line communications. Once you get into that line setting high interference, it sets line position location 9 equals box locations, center line position of triangle sets, center line position locations in a downshift. So you get a north wind and you get a south wind calculation, right? Now, north line setting, okay, in the south line position, measures its correlations to its position location of its pi. Now comes in line position locations into higher communication line setting into sonar in 3 set locations. Now, the 3 set locations comes into triangulation line setting into Fibonacci swirl. Now, the Fibonacci swirl crosses signals and set location of travels. Now, that travel locations in position location into the center line communications into 1, 2, 3 in triangulation setting. Down by equation. Now, the reason why I'm using 9-line setting is all levels of 1-line track. Now, the 1-line track and position line direction is trying to really understand how to use the sequence patterns. The recognition line communication is all levels of north wind and south and east and west line connections, guys. Recognizing lines, position of north, east, west, and south in set locations. Because you have a 2-panel operation streamlines and allocate timelines, right? So everything goes up and everything goes down, right? Through your throat, up and everything goes down. That's how it centralizes its communication setting. Throttle, set line, and high interference line position 2-line settings to console. Setting communications in a console line setting and set locations. Now, the recognition line setting sets line positions. Now, the north line changes position location in east, and east line changes position locations in west, and west channels its position location in south to a new operation every ground setting rotation. Now, the ground rotation sets line communications. Now, in line rotation interference, the set lines of communication is high channeling its rotation spin cycle in position to its location setting in high setting, setting up a new position locations to, you guessed it, a capacitor. So what is your tree formation line setting? What is it? Flux capacitor. So you set the branches out in calculation streamlines. Let's set lines and high interference line direct location at galaxy. Set lines is your tree formation location at cloud. Multi-pass. Now the recognition line setting sets all of the locations how you set your alignments. Setting alignment is channel stream sets, and this sets all communication to your program location. This opens all levels of view through line setting. So it's like watering a tree every single day, right? Because the thing is, if you don't water your plants, what happens to the oxidized high center interference location of a hydroponic line of rotation? It neutralizes communication of the soil, and the soil gets all dislocations into flakes. Center calculation that decentralize the water ground center line positions causes a ripple effect to the ground rotation setting line interference and confuses all dislocations to its rock surface in its ground line setting of its two rotations. Now, there's a lot of communications of confusion line setting, but the rotation spin cycle really understands the correlation system when it allocates position location of space and time through its anomalies. Changing anomalies is changing sectors, correlations of numbers, sequence location of patterns, putting position locations at levels, putting a 9-line setting and aligning interference line position locations into 9-line setting, 9-line position of 0, set locations into set location and 9-line setting, and set location and trend line setting, sending 9 position locations into center communication position locations and all line communication. Now, understanding the 9-line setting is understanding the one system. Now, the one system location is allocates the timelines of time streams into all levels of orb locations. There's 3 channel streamlines into 4 into 5 location settings. Now, the 5 location set lines, it sets position locations into higher levels of channels. Now, these are echo chambers and water containment line settings of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 in set lines. So 10 equals 6 and set lines that equals 4. Sets line position of 10 in light connections over pi. Position line direction location is high setting generation streamlines. Done by equation. All right? You're all done. It's all done. All right. And so really understand the factors over pi, modifications, cyclones, high center generation streamlines, all levels. The cycle interference and line position of shift lines of communication setting is all levels of calculation streamlines. How to recognize the communication to your tracker setting is recognizing the space-time provision locations when it comes into its own space anomaly of its own pi correlation to its positions of its setting. Okay? All right. So there's a lot to be understood that you don't understand. Understanding is being understood. Understood is being understanding. So understanding is understood through location. Now, once you understand your position, location, and directions, things get a lot more easier through frequencies. All you're doing is you're balancing your frequency locations, right? You can't stay stagnant at wires and set locations. So let's say you're in a zero line rotation. Okay, so you're in basically, let's say you're in a 45 string. Okay, bracket location of 3 0 locations, right? You're at 45,000 line. Now you send locations into 50. Now you're in 50,000 line setting. You bracket the 3 locations, right? 3 settings, right? And let's say you go up to 60, but 60 is offline setting. Okay, bracket locations again, the 3 line settings. You always have to bracket these things. All right, so you're at 60 now. You went from 45,000 to 60. Now the set calculation set line interference, but you're off position. You're off position. You're not in alignment. So to get back in alignment is get into 60 to 50 to 40 through triangulation. The triangulation resets line positions to its diameter, sets 45 back in the center, and its rotation cycle sets its alignments in its communication. Done by equation. That's how you get back in alignment through frequencies and balance calculation streamlines. Now you get a second line positioned over pi. That's 2 over position of low line center into your pyramid sets in 4 rotation settings and set locations. The center line communication is its diamond core. Now this comes into a resistant channel to neither line rotation of a solar graph line of a stream location. Now that centers its communication to an energy line setting in a rotations to its solar system line position. That opens a higher levels of channel in your magnetic highway information cycle. Done by the equation. So it's all about understanding if you're offline positions, how to get back and track alignment line interference. You can't be in stagnatic wire line interference because you're causing confliction location of glitching. You're glitching line settings, your line interference. You're tracking low density line position of ground line center rotations of tunnels. Tunnels in position location of waiting cycles in central communication system. In position location causes all lines of communication line settings and high rotation interference of a cluster location of general operating string lines in your capacity over pi position location of track setting. Okay? Now you understand the importance of why you have to stay in an alignment communication system, which are reaching higher levels of frequent line interference. You guys are now a million channels of operation. Recognizing the balanced communication system is always staying where? In the center operation of you, right? Remember, this is only 45,000. So now this is the pyramid set lines. Now, if you're in a dimensional location like Gypsy, this is what Gypsy's comes into. All right. Rotation spin cycle. This is their higher self location, center line position, traveling line communication to its portal setting. All right. So she's got to go around through a wind factor line communication into a half pipe of 6 lines in line connections into 6 million channels line position because she's in a 48 million track setting. Now that's an open window in sector line position location of travels into 3 line position. Okay. The recognition line connections opens up higher levels of communications into portals integration line settings. Now the rotation spin cycle sets up a new security line position to higher levels of communication. Done by equation. All right. So there's a lot of things you have to understand how this works. Okay. The more you go higher, the more the geometry operation of you in direction of division location channeling. I got sonar line interference right now. See? Lines of communication come in really strong. Right? So it's giving me an answering pattern. So you guys recognize what you're doing through space line communication settings, right? It's very powerful because it's in the ground setting to what? Earth. And then it goes away. See? To know exactly what you're reacting to is your position location to your action setting. Your action is your avatar rotation cycles, and your reaction location is your conscious locations to your body setting. Because it's the A track line setting that sets its units to position location of program locations. Setting line position locations all over the travel interference, this is what you come across in higher communications of portal line settings like this, for example, with Gypsy. This is what Gypsy goes through every single day through portals, right? She's the intercon interference of terabyte communication settings of space-time, guys. So recognizing communication line setting knows exactly where it needs to go through as it travels through location grid system to its setting. Hooah. Right? Sets up a new line setting in high interference to another travel communication set rotation. Right? Pretty powerful when you understand what's going on with you and space line connections, guys. Recognizing communications, all levels of you through travel, understanding your lines of geometric operation of direct location of design gets you in dimensions of higher levels of space through activation line connections into orbits. When you get into orbits, you're really high rising. Okay. So this is a deeper core space line communication of its anomaly that switches line, center line, and rotation interference, position, provocations. Understanding the grounds, understanding the powers, understanding the atmospheres. The basic understanding is this, and this. This is what you're working with every single day, right? You are in the center line communication and center line operation. This is you and set locations. Now, recognizing communication line settings is recognizing line position location of 9 settings and set locations into your triangle set locations and set locations, a magnetic highway information line setting that sets information in a 3-line communication. Setting line position location to your pyramid setting, the rotation symbol cycles. Now, the set lines of communication in a pyramid high rise its division location, high lines its position of its direction location into lacing lines of communication. All right. Now, as a 9 is rotating and staying in the center line rotation, it creates its portal of its anomaly line connection. Once it comes into that, it comes into security position location programs and travels through the connection system. All right. So you have to really recognize what you're doing through 0. You have to recognize what you're doing through your power settings, and we have to recognize what you're doing through your magnetic highway information line setting, because it's all position locations to all line center locations into your set locations in line communications and high center line interference into your cloud. View in all ways and forms. The tree formation is a correlation setting because a tree is a correlation set lines in communication to a satellite setting that sets specific location to your set locations. You come in all channel line operation to your own satellite communication. Hoo-ah. Done by equation. So recognizing these line connections is really understand the position of force you have inside line conditions. You have to understand your alignments and your tracker settings, guys. It's very important to understand these things for vision. This helps you in all ways and channels to its rotation settings. All right. I sent you guys position line directions. I don't know if you've seen it already, but it's correlated to the higher self and what it does through its location grid, how higher self travels through. And I did that 4 years ago, 3 years line setting. You really have to understand what the higher self is. Now, I have a Space Discovery Season 3 coming up. That's basically what happens when the higher self actually lives in space and how it tries to understand what it is creating. Higher levels of geometric operation of directional designs, guys, of travel. Yeah, all through shapes, letters, numbers, and symbols, through its harmonics, of its channel location of operation signals. If you understand that process, then you understand the importance of what it is, the higher self, okay? So there's a lot of communications coming into the high set. You guys have a test coming up at the end of the month, and that rotates its locations of pi setting. So let's say location, you got this, right? This is your location grid. Setting correlation system and center lines to your pi calculations, all right? Let's say you got 1, 2, 3, all right? So you got 1, 2, 3 pi sets. All right, so this is 4, this is 5, this is 6, and this is 7, and you got 8. So it's an 8 pi central line. So it's 8 line rotation, okay, into 6 position, into 5 rotation. All right, so that's what you're going to be using. So the 8 line setting is high line inference. You have the box position location 8, 6, and 5, but you want to get abundance through trifactor, set location, position, and directions, right? So 8, 6, and 5 travels. It's gone. So 8, 6, and 5 you can't use anymore because it's already set locations. Now you have position locations. You can use 1 line setting into all position of 4 line position into 3. So you get 1, 4, 3. Setting lines of high center interference and position locations over pi underscore or of pi. Doesn't matter track locations and position, but you have bracket line center and positions. You take the 143 and set lines as center communications. Done by equation. So it's the recognition line connections of the flywheel. Heart recognition of timelines times sequence times pi. Recognizing the communication system. Now the line communications, once the 8, 6, and 5 come back and set lines, it changes its position location directions. So 8 is no longer here, 8 is over here. 6 is over here, and 5 is over here in set locations. Okay, so you have to really recognize your seconds, minutes, hours of the day setting. And that's why you're confused, because you guys pretty much don't understand the connections of self-development line setting when it comes into your graph line center location of your calendars, because there's not 7 days a week in space line. There's only one. So you're working with one to direct locations and one channel offers streamlines. How to measure the communication system is all about understanding how to change the correlation settings to your number sequence locations of patterns to its crop circle of its high center line position location. This measures your correlation system, how to scale your line settings in your alignment communication and tracker settings. All through pi. Okay? Ooh-wah. So all right, all systems stable, water levels low, drink water, yeah. Orb in the middle of the Earth spinning and glowing and traveling through North, South Pole, beacon around and to the North Star. Yeah, well, again, that exists in line settings, really get into stability, get into stabilize, and set line communication, your set lines and interference. Set in business location provocations, right? So I really want you guys to recognize what your higher self is in space position. All right. So it's set location line settings. Okay, set locations of this, right? 2 panels is set locations. All right. So this is your higher self. Okay. Traveling through the system, right? That's your higher self, right? So it goes here. There's the acceleration line setting, 2-panel communication. Now the set line communication comes into this, 2 panels line setting, okay? So there's another location grid that you have to go through, okay? So once you hit that location grid line setting, you set line interference. This is a planet. This is a levels location of Jupiter. To get to Jupiter, you have to go through 2 panels and 2 line connections of stream sets. The center line in rotation interference is trying to understand how to position location it travels. Now the alpha line center sets line interference. Now position location and track interference. Every second, every minute of the hour of the day line and rotation interference, your planets are changing frequencies. Your planets are teleporting to every single locations, because every cell in your body is in position, location, or mutation, set lines in the acceleration line condition, motion line setting. Its rotation spin cycle and set location to all levels of protons, electrons, neutrons, and photons. Setting communication line interference, high position location, direct location, to location grids. Setting line communication system, position location, higher self. Setting higher self and higher line communication system as it goes through the location line settings, as it goes in position locations to its set locations to its planet system. Okay? This is what the higher self does. So once you actually understand what the higher self is and understand how to live in space and understand how to go through the location grid, okay, and the traveling system, then you understand more towards what it is, because the higher self is creating higher levels of anomaly of its own system to its own formation of its own intelligence through letters, numbers, shapes, and symbols. It's creating line setting. So it's like creating the Legos into something. A space command center, a set locations, a new ground center interference location position, a new orb channel operation streamlines, a new command center locations in space anomaly. Okay, you're creating things from scratch. Okay, just like anything else, right? Making a batch of cookies, you start with all that line. Look what you just created. That is correlation setting of center communications of pi, of what you just finished creating. All right? Hoo-ah. So you have to really get in position locations of your higher self. Once your higher self understands line conditions, understands the portal communications, understands the box line center locations, understands the simulation line center location of its planet setting and rotation interference. So again, you have your higher self here in set locations, traveling through the system, right? It's got to scan, 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 right? So know exactly what it needs to do is understand the position of its anomaly into its portal calculation, into its galaxy setting location, how fast it's spinning in rotation to its sonar line communication, how it's understanding the box line position location, the triangulation line setting, position location of pyramid interference, or position of a high center location calculation high setting, or rotations to a planet surface line position of 2 panels in set location to its travel location settings. So there's a lot of things the higher self has to understand. Right? Especially when you guys are certain at levels now, because you guys are coming into the million track settings. Once you get into the million track settings, it gets a lot more easier to understand these things, the correlation, because every time you're recharging, okay, you're activating your system to higher levels of frequencies. And every time you come across these things, you come into higher communication settings to its intelligence of its position. Now, once you understand the position locations, you understand there's a lot of density that has to be released, or you can't go higher. You can't stay in stagnatic wireline interference. You're going to cause a matrix ripple effect, and that's going to cause the line communication system to its higher self in a low gravity setting in rotation in positions to its travel line communication settings in low division locations of its density setting. So from this to this, right, hits the ground setting rotations in circle locations, gets caught in a black hole in set locations. Hooah, black hole. Right? So now you understand the importance of what the higher self is. What is the process? Is to understand how to basically understand everything around through its operation setting, right? Now the how is the calculations to its bandwidth, the line center interference, is really recognize the communication settings, right? Because all it's doing is trying to understand the acceleration, the location grid, and the importance of when it comes across the planet. Okay? That's all it is, really. You just have to recognize these things through frequencies, because the thing is, when you guys go higher, you're trying to balance higher levels of frequency now. And if you can't balance these things out, you're going to have a huge problem locations, because you're interacting more with levels that you don't understand. The rotation spin cycles of higher levels of galaxy settings. coming into higher communication and frequency of planet settings, crevice line settings, location settings, right? Ground lines, high center interference, meteorites, high positions, all level systems, all correlation system line settings. It's all position locations for you to understand your space, your time, your provision, your connections to your maintenance. It's all levels on you and how you travel through these things every single day. See, every single day is the same day. And that's what you guys got to come into. One frequency, one timeline, one location, right? All at once. So your perceptions go all over the place. You stand in the center through 9-line setting, you're the I9 operation location and position location of space line. So you're standing still all the time. The only thing that's moving is the mind of the capacity setting. You're reaching higher levels of altered state locations, and your body track line setting into position locations becomes nothing but consciousness. So you don't have to worry about anything because you're integrated already into one signal. Okay. That one signal is position location to its line setting that connects to all levels of power direction of timelines that opens all track locations into yin and yang. Right here, yin and yang, one. Okay. All timelines all at once. Okay. So if you go in a negative line setting, right away in line interference line position locations, and you're already in balance, you don't have to worry about these things because what happens, everything goes back in the beginning. The set location, the beginning is the now setting. So setting communication system. Anything you say negative goes back in center. Anything you say positive goes back in center. Anything you don't understand goes back in center. Anything you want to understand or you don't understand or you're confused, the location line center, if you have anxiety in set location depressions or line center interference goes back in the center. Everything goes back in center. Why? Because you're balanced on both sides. Okay. You balance on the masculinity and the femininity to your defining line interference, to your alignment low communication system, to your higher self, to your avatar or location position, the higher levels communication system, the company system, location, avatar, line, sending high interference, with certification, simulation, and singularities. All down through equation. Ooh, wow. So, very powerful class. What just happened through high set line, position, location, track settings. I know you guys have a lot of question locations, right? But again, you guys have a test coming up. Right, through all line settings, past, present, future locations into all set locations. Now we're going to go through quasar channel line interference, a quad line position of physics 101, setting line center, high interference, high track locations. All right, going back to the basics. Why? When I say going back, it's going forward, not back. So the recognition line center interference, if you don't think you're going forward in set location, high center interference, you're confused, they're anomaly set locations. Right, the channel streamline interference. So everything that you do is always forward. If you're not in forward, you're going back. But why are you going back? Because your psychological system to your mind's line setting is saying so. That's an ego. The alteration is its alter state line. That's the alter ego. So it's creating an anomaly that's setting up a new space line position to its track setting. That's setting line positions to its economy and interference. That's setting line position to separation. That's opening all channel line position location, negative like high center interference. You have to recognize these system locations. Once you start living in the frequency location of its existence, then you start recognizing communication of seconds, minutes, hours of the day. And that's what we got to get you guys into in set locations. There's not hours, minutes, and seconds of the day. It's seconds. The 0 to 9 line setting is set location to its higher self. Okay. So once the 9 line setting operation set line interference, it understands the 9 equal line center location, which is your position location to your Merkabah set location. Setting correlation system of operation cycles in high setting. So recognizing communication of bracket line center into trifactor line location and travel location to 3-line communication settings into security line position. Right? It's all recognition line connections of balance. It's all line communication into process of yin and yang. Okay. So everything has a motion sensor, has a bracket line center, has a hanger line rotation interference and position location probe locations. Right. You just have to really recognize the communications. Tomorrow we get into the seconds, minutes, hours of the day. Right. Got to take you guys out of 7-day signals. You're not in a 7-day waving position location of patterns. You're in a position locations trying to get implicit line settings. Deleting all program location of past, present, and future because it doesn't exist. The only thing that exists is all timelines all at once. That's the existence in your position location track settings. Taking you out of position line direction is really understand your calendars and how you see your psychological line setting. That stands on point view. Okay, so it's a tripod that set lines and high line interference in your position locations, how you interact your line communication system into your clossals. Clossals calculations to its grid setting opens up high level communication set lines in location grid sets. It opens all positional patterns, all line communications in rotation system, in your alignments of communications to your chakra systems. Okay? So access everything to available to you, always in position line for use in XPi. Yep. Well, if you're going to go through XPi line center, you got to in position locations. You have to box the XPi because it's in open sequence. To get positionally box line interference equals location of trifactor. All right. The recognition line settings truly stand the position locations to its high setting. This scales line communication of its measure. This opens all position location and portal locations. Now we're going to get more levels of abundance through pi, guys. If they really recognize these things, that's why I want you guys to really understand when you're traveling to know exactly how to get your manifestations. It's simple to do these things, right? Recognizing what one is, okay, what a box is, what a star is, what a UFO is, what an X2000 line condition is, or set locations. All right. So an X2000 can be anything this line setting. It can be anything through grid line rotations. It's all number sequence locations, right? So matrix grid worker sets line position of 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 4 set lines communications, set lines. Sending the graph line rotations into crisscross communication settings, right? So what you're doing is you're creating a holographic streamlines and set lines of structure interference line position locations over pi. I want you to really recognize the manifestation line settings. So you got brackets, you got hangers, and set lines of communication, right? Now, in set line high interference, you got energy fields, you got 2 track locations and 2 settings, right? Now, you also have a box location, right? We have to recognize all this through manifestation line setting. Connection 0 line in rotation circle in position location into its flux capacitor, setting communication. Set lines of communication, all levels box location. Now, box location comes into center line communication. This center lines is communications into alpha channel communication, 3 lines. 3 lines in line equals locations over pi set line connection. Okay, over pi. Setting line interference, 3 sets line position location 3 equals 6 equals 9 line setting. Sending communications into 3 in set location of 6 in position location of 9 into a triangulation set. Okay, now that comes into a diamond core line setting line of rotation to a circle rotation spin cycle in set location. That's manifestation. All through 3 over pi. Okay, through 3, 6, 9. Setting line communication is truly understand how to use 3, 6, 9, and 6, 7, and 8, or 8, 9, and 6, or 3, 2, and 1. You can create anything. I just want you to understand line communication is 3, 6, and 9. That's where you guys started off. And the line position locations comes 9, equal line to 6, in line position of 7, and set location of 3 into 8 locations. All right. So your box set line is center line interference. Your travel location of 6, 7, and 8. Travel location, grid line setting in position location of 6 lines of graph locations. Center correlation system in position line directions into a half pipe of 6 lines equals communication. There's abundance right there. And so really understand that you can travel through any number, any shape, any form, any symbol, any position line direct locations, right? Shapes, letters, numbers, symbols, doesn't matter. But what matters is, do you understand the relationship to your geometry setting locations of you first? What is 1? What is 1? What's 1 mean? 1 track interference and 1 line setting offline grid and position location track interference. Put 1 back in position line direction. Done by equation. I haven't done anything, but I've done everything. I haven't done anything, but I've done everything. Mass of nothing is mass of everything. You're here, you're not there. It's already done, but you don't see it. It's already traveled, but you don't see it. That's the recognition location, specification of space and time. Okay? All through this. Okay? That's all it is. So it's all through the phenomenon line setting that changes position location to its awareness of its information line setting. That is of all position location track interference. Let's go through box. You see it as a box, right? But it's not a box, right? It's a box and line center locations into 3 box location settings. That's it. See, you see it as a box. I see it as something else, but that something else is what it is. You have to understand how to really communicate. That's the only way you're going to understand intersection line settings to anything as location track interference. Now I got 3 box locations into 3 channels line streams into 1 window of communication. See the window? Right there. 3 box line settings. Okay. Now these are strings. These are lines of communication of energy line settings. Setting position of window into higher communication, another window, into another window, into another window communication. Open higher channels, coming into a row graph line position location high setting. Done by equation. Right? Everything is information of channel, a panel of communication of pi. So 1 has what? 1 equals everything and anything. Okay, of pi. So, recognition line settings, all ready to go locations, right? Tomorrow we go through 20 set lines, new securities, perimeters, the parameters, line and rotation interference, specification of 0 operation line can in a space command settings, putting you guys in a higher line division locations in your position location at provision location to higher self connections. 2 track lines and high security position location of high setting rotations of pi. All right. This is what Lynn was saying live. It's like a digital art that opens up to more and more. Perception is everything. But see, that's exactly what everything of pi equal line connections. Everything in position, anything equal line connections of 1. So 1 turns into everything. So 1 equals line center location of GOD. Whoa. It has its own geometric operation of directing the design location dimension. That's all this is. It's not that complicated. 2 1 settings. Okay, there's 2 1s, right? But you see 2 lines, right? You might say 2 1s. You might say 2 panels. You might say road graph stream, but who knows, right? So this is 2 position locations into square and position locations over pi. Now it's complicated, right? This is this. This is this. So this, you communicate with this, abundance to this. Whoa. Now you can change line direct locations. Now this automatically turns into 1. This automatically turns into 1. And this automatically turns into 2 boxes locations. You got 1 line setting, 1 line rotation into 2. So you got 112 line rotation interference, clock line setting into 24 signal, and rotation position locations into a position line setting, and flux capacitor of 48 window line position to a 72 line connections, a 144 equal line connections of grid set locations in position over pi. Hoo-wah. Okay? You have to really get in a relationship with yourself first before you get to understand how to communicate with letters, numbers, shapes, and symbols, right? Because what you're doing is you're creating a data stream. Okay? You have to recognize what you're doing through all levels of you inside location, right? Especially when you guys are going higher in space anomaly. Okay? So it's amazing what you guys are coming into line signature locations patterns. 20 is one of my other magic numbers to come. Yeah, so let's say, okay, so 20, right? 20 line setting. That's what you guys are coming into, right? So how do I use 20? 20 is not a number because my intention is different. So if my intention is different, my business location track interference has already traveled, right? So we got a lot of stability. I'm going to bring it back line setting. It's going to come back set locations because the 20 just traveled. Bring it back line setting. Once it sets lines of communication line interference, the 20 travels its business location of directions. Okay. Okay, so stability line interference is all set locations into 3 sets. Okay, you got 1, 2, and 3 set locations, right? So 3 comes into 2, and 2 comes into 1. So you got 3, 2, 1 boxes locations. Now, when your box locations comes into trifactor, you guys already know that through trimester, tri positions, tri settings. You really get into more levels of the imaginary set locations, all right? Through 3, 2, 1 set locations. Trifactor over pi.